Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 11 fantasy football rankings by position. You want the list? Hit the description. You want the time codes for a specific position? Also down in the description. As is the direct link to the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. Now open, 3,000 spots, rake free. Best tournament on DraftKings. Better fill it if you want to make your own projections. Highly recommend you check out runthesims.com/Mayo. Get yourself 10% off all the betting tools, all the DFS tools, and the season-long projections you can use to win your matchups. Even the head-to-head comparison tool with the rangefinder. Not a problem. Also, if you want more betting content, whether you're super casual, brand new, or highly advanced, highly recommend that you check out thehammer.hq on YouTube or thehammer.bet, the website, and go to it right now. It's fantastic. Just throwing that out there for everyone. I have shows up there with Feinberg and Tim and with Cam and Rob extra on what we do already. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is on the line. Sir, it's almost Thanksgiving. The time flies, man.
I know, it really does. This is about when you usually get your second win before I do. This is about usually when I get mine, right? Because Thanksgiving week is hell for us because you got the 5 day. Well, is it as bad for you? Because I know you still do stuff up there, but it's like is it as bad in the fact that like everything's shut down and you're trying to cram everything into 3 days?
Well, our Thanksgiving was like 5 weeks ago, so right, I had to work through that with everything being closed and having like wrangling my family, and now it's in a weird situation because I have to do the same schedule for your Thanksgiving as I normally would because, you know, it's American football, so American Thanksgiving. That only works. I don't get any American holidays off, but I also, because of the schedule, don't get any Canadian holidays off either. It's really bizarre. So I still have to cram all my stuff into the 3 days, but that's only because that's when everyone's going to consume the content, is those 3 days. I will have a brand new show on Friday, and I'll be like the only person with that.
You will be the only person. Are you going to be the only person in the studio doing it, period? Is that by yourself?
Well, no, I think Meanie and Tambo lives like 15 minutes from me. Meanie lives like just over an hour away. Maybe the three of us can go do a show together.
You know what's really funny, as a quick sidebar, is that over an hour away, it's so funny when you like Virginia Beach, people are like, he lives like 20 minutes away. I'm like, seriously? Like, have you never lived in a city where like a friends live 30, 45 minutes away?
You know, it's funny because like where I live now, I could drive for like 70 minutes and get to Meanie's house. But Meanie lived probably 3 miles from me in Toronto. Also would have taken me like 35 minutes to get to his house.
See, so there you go.
It's just you're taking subways, you're taking streetcars, you got to walk for a little bit. This is like straight shot highway. We're good to go.
Well, actually, I'd rather do that than drive 30 minutes of traffic, honestly, as we just consume this entire episode on traffic talk and locations in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even being specific about locations in Canada, but you know, I liked because my old office, like the old studio, was, I could walk there in probably 35 minutes. I could take the subway and get there in around like 28 minutes. But I used to Uber every day because I'm fucking lazy, and that's just how I am. Leave everything to the very last second. But the one thing I enjoyed, I'd constantly be stuck in traffic, but I could work in the back of the Uber. I could just like tether my phone to my computer and just do my prep that way. So. Yeah, it was more. Wait,
is that the old office or the old office? The one that I actually went to, the other one.
No, the old office, not the old. Meanie used to live by the old fantasy studios. Yeah,
that was to that.
Yeah, you could walk to that. It would take me like an hour from my house to walk. Then, I mean.
I was saying I got put in like a whatever Canadian Airbnb is. Is that still Airbnb? I'm not trying. I'm seriously asking.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's still Airbnb.
Okay.
All right, let's talk running backs for week number 11. Much better. I feel like it's much better this week, although I got to a point where I'm like, ooh, now we're doing a little bit of a shuffle here. Eckler's number 1 for me, although 1 through 11, I suppose, doesn't really matter. Yeah. Eckler, Henry, Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs. That goes into Dameon Pierce, James Conner, David Montgomery, with the assumption that Khalil Herbert is not going to play. We still don't know that as of yet, and if he does play, obviously Montgomery will go down. Pollard is 14 with Zeke back for me. Ramondre is number 15, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, Devin Singletary, Miles Sanders, and Elijah Mitchell coming in at number 20. We spoke about this a little bit on last week's show of what would the return of Elijah Mitchell look like, and I was like, all right, I could see him eating into the work. Did not think he'd eat this much into the work of Christian McCaffrey. Why are we trading all these picks for Christian McCaffrey?
I think that's the most confusing part about it. Like, so there's so many things that I got a lot of pushback when I tweeted, like everybody was like, what the hell's happening? I made the joke comp tweet about like, hey, play CMC, you cowards, because that's like a joke thing out there. I was looking to find the tweet that I put out yesterday. Oh, here it is. So it makes sense. Like people are like, well, we're going to keep Christian McCaffrey healthy. Okay, sure. 100%. That makes sense. Christian McCaffrey healthy for the playoffs. You're a playoff contender. Why trade for him and get him banged up? But you just gave him immense work the week before. He can handle it. And I understand ceding a few touches, but talk about getting hurt. Elijah Mitchell, you're going to give him 18 touches every single week. Elijah Mitchell's not going to make it to the end of the season if they're giving him 18 touches every single week. And the volume was confusing. I will say this, Pat, it's something we can probably, if we're going to say one game is predictive of what the 49ers are going to do, we can kind of predict what should happen. So this is what I tweeted out yesterday. So when the Chargers were up by 4 more, so over a field goal, 75% of the snaps went to Christian McCaffrey, 25% to Mitchell. When it was game neutral in between a field goal both ways, it was 58% CMC, 42% Mitchell. So not as big as a gap, but still a gap. When the 49ers were up by over a field goal, 36% for CMC and 64% for Mitchell. So this kind of tells us, like, once the game's in hand, they're going to turn to Elijah Mitchell. I agree with you. Why do you just trade a second, third, fourth, and fifth for Christian McCaffrey just to split touches with somebody who's had a bunch of injuries himself? It makes sense, fine, but I think we now have to look at this as like Mitchell's playable and what we expect to be good game scripts for the 49ers, and CMC runs the risk of maybe having a RB2 type of game if they're up early.
That makes sense to me. And when we go down farther in the rankings, there's probably a name that you didn't hear. It's Donta Foreman, comes in at number 22 this week. I still like Foreman more than Hubbard, but I think that we are shaping up to potentially see what happened 2 weeks ago with Carolina. And now Baker Mayfield is starting at quarterback as well, so I don't know how that's really going to impact Donta Foreman. But if they get down a ton, which they're expected to do to Baltimore, I just don't know how much Foreman's going to be in the game. Like, if you're going to, like, trust Foreman as a legit option this week, I think he's a low-end number 2. I think he's playable because he's still going to get all of the goal line work if they ever get near the goal line, which they have not really done all that much with Baker Mayfield at quarterback so far this season. That's just going to be Hubbard in the game, or, as we talked about, whoever that role is as the pass-catching back. The first week, when it was Hubbard and Foreman, Hubbard was the main between-the-tackles guy, and Foreman was the pass catcher. And we were like, what is going on here? That has flipped since Hubbard got hurt and then has since returned, that it's very clear that Foreman is the better in-between-the-tackles runner. He runs hard, and they don't want to use him in the passing game at all. And if they get down by 10 early, very feasible against the Ravens, we just might not see a lot of them.
Yeah, that's the risk right there. And I think that I had Foreman a little bit low last week because I was expecting Carolina to play better and possibly, Atlanta to play better and to have this game either close or Atlanta come out to a little bit of a lead against Carolina, but it went the opposite way very quickly. So I think that's what you look at is we've kind of seen that so far through the entire Foreman season, so to speak, since Christian McCaffrey's been gone. And it might not be even, like, I'm not agreeing with you to say, go play Hubbard. And I don't think you are either, because it might be Blackshear. And it just might be he's that guy now, and Hubbard's kind of just that third option backup plan for Foreman now. Either way, I do think that brings in some Foreman risk there. The one that I saw a little bit high that I wanted to ask you about, because you brought this up last week, and it's why I pulled back on Miles Sanders, and we saw that go super south for the Eagles. Look, the Eagles weren't supposed to be behind like that. The Eagles weren't supposed to be playing catch up to the Washington Commanders and all that type. That all being said, you said last week the Washington Commanders are sneakily good against running backs. And if you look down on what they've done this year, even as they've been getting better off the past 3 or 4 weeks, Dameon Pierce, I know he gets all the work, but that still feels a little bit high for this matchup.
I just think that he gets all the work, and that's also the strike against Miles Sanders, that he doesn't get all the work. He has to share it with Gainwell and Scott, but mainly he has to share it with Jalen Hurts. He actually didn't even play that poorly. He only had like 2 carries in the first half or something crazy like that against the Commanders. He actually looked quite good in the second half, and I guess the big thing here is I think that Washington may have kind of blown their load a little bit. It's going to be a short week for them. We might get Chase Young back, which would not be good, but short week. This was their Super Bowl, realistically, knocking off an undefeated team. And they played excellent defense. They also got kind of lucky in that game, too, with some of the calls and just Philly didn't have its A game
and turnovers
when they came. But I just feel like we saw that like Houston played from basically 2 scores down that entire game against the Giants, albeit the Giants have a much worse run defense than the Commanders do, but there's just Pierce. Like that was the worst game Pierce is essentially going to have, and he had, 100 yards rushing?
Okay, I mean, I get it. I was looking at 2 or 3 names behind him that I feel a little bit better about. Like, I don't love David Montgomery, but I love David Montgomery knowing Herbert's not involved.
Okay, you know what? You're probably right about that. And I felt like this was kind of a hedge just in the off chance that Herbert does play. But you're right. Since I do not have Herbert ranked, how high up would you move David Montgomery? Would you put him above Josh Jacobs?
Pierce.
Just
Yeah, because against Denver?
Yeah, Denver bad run D, although it was funny. Watching that game was kind of hilarious because like statistically coming in over the last month, Denver had the worst run defense in football and the best pass defense. But Derrick Henry obviously got limited by Denver. Why? Because Denver didn't even try to play pass defense. They're like, and you saw what ended up happening. They just sold out to stop Derrick Henry. And they were like, this is probably going to be good enough against a gimped up Ryan Tannehill. And eventually they ran the flea flicker play and just Nick Westbrook-Ikeda was just behind the defense because they had sold out on the run every play during the game. And it was working. I just don't know, even with like the limited passing attack that Vegas is going to put up, it's better than Tennessee's passing attack. Like they have players that Denver has to respect.
Sure, but Atlanta's run defense versus Denver's, and I know you're saying just
yeah, I'm good with Montgomery.
It's Montgomery barely over Jacobs.
I mean, I could listen. I could see a situation because I'm like this. I'm just like, Joe Mixon coming off 60 points in a bye week, but now T.J. Watt's back for the Steelers. Mixon, I don't know. I'm gonna play Mixon over Montgomery, but I think it's pretty close.
Wait, you mean Mixon's not gonna score 4 touchdowns this week?
I mean, he might. That's it. That's in his range of outcomes, as we've seen.
Clearly. Speaking of that being in a range of outcomes, where did you? I didn't see. Where was Kamara in your ranks after coming off that dud?
Yeah, 2 duds in a row, 8.
Yeah.
Are you gonna bench him?
I think no. Some of the names behind them. I think at this point I would play in front of them. I think if you're looking at the Rams, I know they're broken, but sneaky defense this week. They're now in the world of being a sneaky defense from years past. Now they're a sneaky defense to play as matchup wise.
I don't think any defense playing the Saints, whether it be Dalton or Jameis starting, because we don't know yet, it's probably going to be Dalton. I would actually bump Kamara down if Jameis is starting, because he's just, although we haven't seen the targets materialize for Kamara as much as we had seen at the beginning of the Dalton run, it just doesn't happen with Jameis. It's not even in the cards.
No, it doesn't. Speaking of Jameis, by the way, like how insane he is for this passing game, because I was tweeting out the fact that Christian Watson had the second most team air yard percentage for any given week in this year. That week, like Chris Olave, when he had the 300 air yards, that didn't even crack the top 7 because of how many air yards Winston threw in that game.
That's insane. What do you make of,
isn't it?
Yeah. Looking back at the snap shares, you can find all the snap shares in the newsletter, by the way, the Monday post. There's a new one coming out on Tuesday night with updated injury report, thoughts about the week, then another one on Saturday. Highly recommend that you go sub. It's completely free, gets sent right to you, and it gets updated for the injuries every day if you're ever needing a hotspot for an injury list of when that comes up. James Conner played 95% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy couldn't be, he doesn't have like the upside, obviously, of Kyler, but for what he does within that Arizona offense, it becomes so concentrated. It's actually really easy to point out. Now, I don't know if this is going to last into Mexico City this week or if that was just like a one-off thing because he's hurt as well, although it does look like he's going to play. James Conner, 95% of the snaps. They cut Eno Benjamin because, I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins, 40% of the target share. Rondale Moore, 35% of the target share. Like, that is what you want from an offense if you have these guys in fantasy.
This was the Minnesota Vikings. Cook, Thielen, and Jefferson. Like this was terrific. This is what we've always wanted. I feel a little bit better, honestly, going against the 49ers if Kyler Murray was out there. He has been pretty concentrated too. And we got the AJ Green stupid touchdown of all. It's like you bring back Colt McCoy and you get that involved. But it is definitely nice that Benjamin was surprising to say the least. He performed well this year. Even, I know there were some shaky games. I'm just speculating, thinking there's something else behind the scenes, like because he didn't get many touches in that game, if he just blew up at the coach and they're like, we don't tolerate insubordination, he's gone. Because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with how much James Conner has missed 3+ games in all but one season. Like, he's definitely an injury risk.
But he's only ever missed more than 3 games once in a season.
Let's see how you can play that out. You know exactly what I'm talking about there. And then your next option up, Darrell Williams is on IR, so you're down to Keontae Ingram, and then they brought in Tyson the Savior Williams from a few years ago. You remember that? Or wasn't that last year?
Pretty sure that was last year. It was
last year.
Gotta have Tyson Williams.
Feels like so long ago. Well, because it was the beginning of last year, and then we had the guys after that with Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray. Yeah, Le'Veon Bell. They're just playing all the like former guys in there.
Professional knockout artist Le'Veon Bell. Listen. I don't think you need to pick up Keontae Ingram, but deeper leagues, yes. And when we start going through the names of Jalen Warren and Hilliard and James Cook and all of these guys, like Alexander Madison, like the primo backups, he's now one of them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I put him in the waiver link this week, and I checked him in basically right behind like the Jalen Warren situation, because at least Warren's getting a run. But I'll tell you, like I'll give you an example. In front of Ingram, I put like Isaiah Spiller, McKinnon, and Warren, and right behind them, like I'd pick him up over Latavius Murray and Kenneth Gainwell.
I think I would pick him up over Isaiah Spiller because I'm still not convinced it would be him in a full-time
I am. Joshua Kelly's still not back, and I'm a Spiller. I like Spiller talent. I'm a Spiller fan from the NFL draft, so that's part of that can differentiate if you like Spiller or not.
Okay. I mean, I'm indifferent to Isaiah Spiller. Just it's one of those things where like I don't either like nor dislike him. I'm just thinking about what the role he's going to play. I just feel like that would be a split backfield.
I think he would be in a similar situation to Austin Eckler. So I see a little bit more upside.
Okay. Maybe I should believe you on that. You go with Pollard at 14 and Ramondre at 15 with Zeke and Damian Harris both playing?
If it's mine, I probably flip them, but that's nitpicking. And because it's 14 versus 15.
Yeah, you put Ramondre.
I'd go Stevenson over Pollard, but I don't really care. I think that's what we're looking at now is just that Pollard is going to be the RB2. Zeke is going to be an RB3. And if he gets a touchdown, he could finish up there with Pollard. And there might be weeks where Pollard just disappoints a little bit when Zeke is out there. That's the risk you run. So I think that's just what we're looking at going forward, which I know they're on a bye, but I think that's what we're going to be facing with Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette going forward now too.
I especially think so because it seems like the hip pointer for Fournette is going to be okay and that he'll be able to return in week number 12. In week 12. Next week. But I think they do want to save him to be playoff Lenny. Like, it's going to start being a lot of Rachaad White. Then we're going to get to the first round of the playoffs. It's like, 95% Leonard Fournette again.
Oh, wouldn't that be? Of course, yeah. That's I could just see that making up for that. But the truth is, Rachaad White was out there starting. He was out there for the first series, and that's the fact that Fournette and Zeke are very comparable at this point in their careers.
Do you think it plays into my theory about the European games of what we saw in London over the course of time, and now that has flipped a little bit, and we saw it in Munich? I completely forgot about it. Is that this turf is not built for NFL players? It's built for soccer players who weigh like a buck 95, not 375. So you put your lighter running back in the game so they don't like sink into the grass. Like, Leonard Fournette's a big dude. Not to say that White's not, but he's not quite as big as old Uncle Leo. That maybe that's why he ended up getting the start in that game.
Well, the light feet versus the soft feet, I can see that's a decent theory. I mean, Sony Michel's not a big dude, but he drives his legs into the ground so flipping hard. That's why he has all those leg injuries throughout his career. You saw the giant ass divots that were going up. I like your theory. That's an interesting theory.
Yeah, so they'll have to get that figured out. I love the Munich game, by the way. Fuck the London game. Let's just go to Germany every time.
They had. Do you think it was the fact that it was like the Germans, or was it the fact that it was their first game versus London's now been there for so many years? Because they were fired up the entire time like a soccer game. But that's what I'm saying. Is it because it was their first, or is it just really because their fans might be a lot more fun than the London people?
I think that it's not that necessarily, maybe I'm wrong about this. Like, I look at like my metrics for the Pat Mayo Experience football shows. Bigger and like I have a pretty good audience in the United Kingdom, but a lot of that is because of golf. When it comes to football, more German listeners than UK listeners. And even when NFL Europe was going on, like the main teams were all in Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I know. I flashed a couple times in Germany. I was like, what is it? The other one, like Papua New Guinea or something random, something like that.
Oh yeah,
okay, cool.
The PME, big in Portugal, by the way, if people need to know. Don't know why. Like big in Colombia as well, but I think that's because we talk about Sebastian Munoz a ton on the golf show. We'll see. 21 through 30. Ezekiel Elliott is number 21. Donta Foreman, number 22, as mentioned. Antonio Gibson, I have at number 23. When you said that, like, you think Isaiah Spiller is really good, I just think that Antonio Gibson's way better than Patterson or Robinson at this point. Even though, like, and they're both getting a ton of bulk. And he ends up scoring the touchdowns, and he's in the majority of the time inside the 5-yard line, which is nice. And he's the one who's used in the receiving game if things go awry. Kareem Hunt, Cordero, A.J. Dillon, DeAndre Swift, Melvin Gordon, Gus Bus Edwards, and then Kenyon Drake back-to-back. Now, Drake would get a huge bump up, or if Gus Edwards ends up sitting out, although I think that he's going to be back this week. When we do, I want to do this at the end of this year. I want to do like the 5 between you and I, the 5 that we were right on and the 5 that we were wrong on. I mean, people out there who are watching, they're probably not watching anymore if they drafted the guys I was wrong on because they're done in their fantasy leagues. But I felt like I was pretty in tune with the guys who weren't going to, like, I have had this like case against DeAndre Swift for ages, and the case that I've made is the case that's played out this year.
Yeah, this is, wait, the injuries or the split part? The split part.
Both.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so there you go. Definitely right. The wrong one, mine was Cam Akers. That was not fun.
I also got that wrong, so we don't talk about that. It's the Bruno of the fantasy football community. We talk about ranking Christian McCaffrey at number 1 over Jonathan Taylor. We don't talk about Cam Akers.
Hey, I was like the Cooper Kupp over Justin Jefferson was fine until this past week. That sucks. But I'm trying to think, like, I had plenty that were right. But we're definitely about DeAndre Swift. I want to save it because, I throw out like the Damian Pierces and stuff like that. But the DeAndre Swift, I'll give you credit. I was more bullish than you were. I still agreed with you and believed that the Jamal Williams. I just said that I thought the Jamal Williams thing was going to be like a 60-40. You pushed back and said it was going to be worse than that. And you were definitely right on that one.
And it's all the goal line work. I know that Swift ended up scoring last week, but like if he doesn't score a touchdown now, he is like a wide running back 5.
It's bad. I do think it'll tick up a little bit more. We saw the signs of it this past week as he didn't have an injury designation, and he was finally 100% cleared, and you saw the snaps come up. But honestly, let's go back to these split backfields we're talking about. If you're looking at, I'm trying to like look at a backfield comp that would be really good for the DeAndre Swift, the usage. Michael Carter with Breece Hall. That's really kind of where we're headed right now. And maybe a little bit more touches. The split's a little bit closer. I'm not talking about Breece Hall at the end. So like say Breece Hall kind of like that middle pace where he's like 60, 65. The 30, 35 was Michael Carter. Could break off a big reception, could get the touchdown and finish top 15 with Breece Hall. But as you mentioned, if he doesn't get the touchdown, if he doesn't have a big play or two, he's an RB4 or RB5. I think that's kind of what we're looking at now, unfortunately.
I would actually say it's like the Montgomery-Herbert split, where there's going to be weeks where Herbert gets more than Montgomery, and there's going to be weeks where Swift gets more than Williams.
That's a good one.
It's just not the majority of weeks.
And it doesn't make sense. At least that's the big thing that we talked about with the Bears, though. There's no rhyme or reason. It's not the matchup. It's not up or down game flow. It's not anything. It's just 1 week it's Herbert, 1 week it's Montgomery, some weeks it's both. It's just credit to the Bears because the defenses have no idea what they plan to do week in and week out. But I think that's actually a better comp. I'll give you that. You win that one.
Thank you. And here's the sneaky thing about the Lions: like they were using Craig Reynolds a bunch before he went on injured reserve. Now they're using Justin Jackson for no reason.
Hey, if the coaches don't know what they're doing, you can't know what they're doing.
That's savvy. That's a Dan Campbell, Jeff Saturday method. Although, shout out to Dan Campbell, who, if you survived with Jonathan Taylor this long, you might have the top 3 running back again.
Oh, for Saturday?
Yeah. Did I say Campbell?
Yes, it did. Yes, I did. Yes, congrats. I told you it was a savvy move. It's a win-win for Irsay. It was, hey, you can call me stupid. That's fine. We tank. We get a great new quarterback. I bring in a coach with no ties to what just happened. If Saturday turns out to be a genius, boom, haha, I was smarter than you, and now we just signed Saturday long-term. Like, there was no downside for Irsay doing this.
Split backfields. Do you like Gibson over Robinson? Just yes. Or no? Okay. Do you like Cordero still the best of the Atlanta running backs?
Yes. It's just that's what we're headed towards. That's actually Cordell was that beforehand. You get those down weeks. That's just what happens with him.
Yeah, so Algier played 48% of the running back snaps last week against the Panthers. Cordero played 37%, and Huntley was still mixed in. And you have to contend with Mariota running the ball. It's not great.
No, and Patterson only had only two, even before he got hurt, where he hit the 50% snaps. He was kind of in this role already anyway.
Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Pacheco. I have Pacheco ranked the highest. I have him just outside the top 30. Here's the difference, because someone kind of pushed back on me. They're like, well, he should be the number one waiver wire pickup if he's still out there. Like, how much better does it get for him than what he's doing right now? It doesn't. This is
that
it.
right there. That's your counter argument, and I agree with you. But he is a top 3 or 4 though, given what's out there. Because I think I had him at 3rd this week in waivers because. Like the running backs are thin right now.
Sure,
but what he is,
I'd rather have Jalen. I'd rather have White. I'd rather have Warren. I'd rather have Gus Edwards. And like,
I put him in front of White just because the hit or miss of the White Fournette situation.
Yeah, but, but I'm not looking to play White every week. I'm not like if you're playing Pacheco every week, your team fucking sucks.
It might just be you might win wide receiver heavy. Here's my counter argument. This is what I'll say. So Pacheco, do we definitively know what Pacheco is? He's Derrick Henry on the Chiefs. He's not used in the passing game. Although if you look for Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the rushing game box score, you're not going to find him because he didn't have a rush. He had 2 targets, 0 receptions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is dead now. He's a high-end backup if you want to stash him in case Pacheco gets hurt. McKinnon's clearly the passing game option. These are backfields we've seen before. A clear runner and a clear pass catcher. They have their roles separated. The thing is, if you look at the Chiefs' schedule and knowing what the Chiefs are and knowing who they are as a team, Pacheco plays out to be a locked-in RB. Yes, of course, things like the Eagles game last night, things can go sideways, and you can get a Pacheco game where he goes 10 for 40 and doesn't get the touchdown. But I think if you look at their schedule, most weeks, you would expect 15-plus carries, a chance for a touchdown. Mid-low RB2. I'm not saying put him higher than that. I'm not saying going crazy. But yeah, I do think you could start Pacheco most weeks going forward as a low-end RB2.
I don't think so. I think that's just how you submarine your team, to be perfectly honest with you. And like, yes, I think that this week he's a better play than, let's say, James Cook or better play than Jalen Warren by like a hair. I'd still rather have those guys.
See, I could say that he's a better play than Michael Carter.
This week? I don't think so. I think Michael Carter is a better play.
See, I would go with Pacheco for I think most weeks, unless you expect them to fall behind somehow. I would just play Pacheco at this point. I understand. I will say the risk is there is that was just a 1 week thing, and all of a sudden next week Edwards-Helaire gets 40% of the touches or something like that, and they're all mixed in again. But at this point, I would play for that upside. I think the Chiefs have turned to him as their lead runner. I
think that he is their lead runner. It's just I don't think the Chiefs like to run. They especially don't love to run near the goal line.
No, but is that the chicken or the egg argument? Is that because Edwards-Helaire sucks so bad at running at the goal line and McKinnon's not your option there? Maybe they finally have an option? It's a good matchup this week, too. The Chargers' run defense is not good.
The Chargers' defense is just not good.
I mean, that's true. There's a problem, Pat.
Just not any good. So you would based on what you just said, it sounds like you would play James Robinson over Michael Carter. I have Carter at 33 and Robinson at 35. It's just I know that Carter, if there's passing game work to be had, he is going to get it. It's not like he's not going to run the ball.
No, I would. But see, that's the thing. I would play Pacheco over both of them. I would play Carter over Robinson just because when it comes down to looking at this matchup, you'd be like, ooh, this should be one where the Jets maybe are in the lead and play control, and that is a James Robinson game. But I mean, and you've mentioned time before this year that the Pats' run defense is susceptible this year. I just don't know which version of the Jets I'm going to get any given week with Zach Wilson, a quarterback. I just never know. So that's where I would just go for the Carter play. I know Carter's going to be involved some way, no matter what, and there's more likelihood of the upside of things going sideways and him getting those pass catches than James Robinson, getting 18 carries because they just control the entire game. But that's what I'm saying is instead of trying to figure out that mess, instead of trying to figure out the mess of like Carolina with you just, I'm obviously not playing that's not a good one because I'm not playing over Deonta Foreman. I'm trying to look at another backfield mess that I wouldn't. Denver, I play Pacheco over anybody in Denver. There's no question about that.
I'd rather play Melvin Gordon, 100%.
No. Pacheco versus Melvin Gordon. Let's do it.
All right. Throw it up. Add it to the list. Wide receiver rankings for week number 11. Justin Jefferson, number 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. Diggs, Adams, Lamb, Hopkins, I really don't care who plays quarterback. Hopkins has been fantastic since he's come back. Super steroid power for DeAndre Hopkins.
I know.
A.J. Brown coming off the bad game. Here we go. Amon-Ra, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. Now that Matt Ryan is back, pop him up. Terry McLaurin, pop him back up. It's all great news for those losers that we drafted like pretty highly back in the preseason. Now they're coming around. Olave at number 11. Amari, Gabe Davis, Rondell Moore, Debo, Cortland Sutton, Josh Palmer, Deontay Johnson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and George Pickens. I don't have Keenan Allen or Mike Williams in. That's why I have Josh Palmer at this spot, and I think this matchup is much better for him than the matchup that we saw against San Francisco.
I think so as well. Even with no Jerry Jeudy, I'm still a little hesitant to have Cortland Sutton that high.
I actually have Jeudy in.
Oh, do you?
I do. I have him at 27.
Then I definitely wouldn't have Cortland Sutton that high.
Man, he made some tremendous catches against Tennessee.
He does. But the Russell Wilson and the offense are trash. You know what? This should just be the game where they file both head coaches at the same time. Howard McDaniels and Hackett still have head coaching jobs right now.
Hey, it's expensive to fire coaches, okay?
I mean, everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, but the Raiders
they're facing each other this week.
I'm pretty sure the Raiders are still paying out Gruden in his like $100 million contract. I think
so. Just bring him back.
Everyone forgot about that. John, you're back. This other guy sucks. So
we don't care what you said. It's cool. You can come back now.
So I think the sneaky part about Tennessee is that they've had a top 10 rush and pass defense so far this season. And you know who doesn't? The Raiders. They get no pressure. They can't play defense, run or pass. I think Russell Wilson could have a really nice game here.
I'm not buying into it
Mr.
at this point. You can.
Unlimited.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Unlimited is going to do exercises on the plane again?
He should.
I mean,
They
that
won,
might be the tell.
I mean, they won that game.
It wasn't that pretty. Although he's at home, so he's already made the trip at this point. So I would play Josh Palmer. I know he had a lower game last week, but I'm just Josh Palmer with no Keenan Allen and no Mike Williams. I'm definitely having it. You know, I'm going to flip a question to you.
Okay.
By the way, I would go with George Pickens over him with no Chase Claypool in that mix now. But at 19, what do you make of this? Because it's such an anomalous small sample, but it is Donovan Peoples-Jones hammers on the road. Amari Cooper sucks on the road, and it's vice versa at home. And it makes no sense. Rich Rebar brought it up last week and was talking about the fact that Amari Cooper destroys man coverage, and Miami runs a ton of three-man deep, and just this should be a game for Cooper. But the home road splits are what they are, and it was another quiet road game and another big game for Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's kind of similar to Ben Roethlisberger for 2 or 3 straight seasons where it was like he sucked on the road and he was great at home, and nobody could explain it, not even Mike Tomlin. Do you put any weight into this? Because the numbers are there. It's clearly Donovan Peoples-Jones on the road and Amari Cooper at home.
Well, I didn't last week, and I mean, I did play a bunch of Donovan Peoples-Jones on DraftKings, but I also played a bunch of Amari Cooper, thinking, it's going to be a high-scoring game. They'll have to catch up.
Yeah.
He'll do something. No, didn't do anything. I brought this, I believe I spoke about this with Tambo last week, because I had brought that up to him as well, because you had mentioned it to me. And I kind of said, it doesn't really make any sense, because this was kind of the tag on him in Dallas as well. He always played well at home and played not poorly on the road, just didn't have nearly the same numbers when they got outside of Cowboys Stadium. And I figured, well, maybe he just plays better on turf and indoors rather than outdoors. But now that doesn't even make any sense. Maybe he just likes sleeping in his own bed.
That's very possible. That's actually what I asked Mike Tomlin about the Ben Roethlisberger thing. He said that. He's like, there's nothing. We don't do game plans differently. We don't do anything differently. Some people just are more comfortable in other locations. And that was kind of how he left it. Very coach speaky, but I mean, just maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just people sleep better at home. I don't know.
So, would you bench Amari Cooper?
No, but I don't think you can put him as a wide receiver 1. It's just staring us there in the face. But now watch him catch 2 touchdowns this week. But it's hard to ignore how much it's been this year. I mean, you look at the guys behind Amari Cooper. Yeah, they're not actually that great. This
week sucks. Once you take Cooper Kupp out of the mix, and there's all the Tampa receivers are out of the mix, it's just
that's 3 guys inside the 3 guys inside the top 20 that are gone. Take out DK Metcalf, take out Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle
and Kirk.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, it's a bad wide receiver bye week.
You legitimately have taken. There's 5 to 7 top 20 wide receivers gone this week. All right, I guess you can't push them down too far then.
Yeah, if you want to play Gabe Davis over Amari Cooper, go for it. That's fine by me. not that you probably care what I think anyway. The other one that I was to take my victory lap on Swift to watch parlay these guys overs together this week, because now that I've mentioned this, they're both going to go off. I nailed Debo, by the way, when people were super high on him.
See, I was low on him too. I think you were lower than I was because I still had him in like the low end wide receiver 1 tier, which is still too high because of the concern that I brought up. It wasn't even so much that I thought the rushing was going to go away as much as it did, although now it came back with Elijah Mitchell. But that was part of the game plan too. But I think you and I had this conversation, if not on this one, I had it on my All in Football show, is the fact that there were very few games last year where we saw Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk all healthy together, let alone part of what I was baking into it too was Trey Lance, which that's now, so I was right, but not necessarily for the right reason with the quarterback situation, but it was right for the other options involved. There's just too many options where even Kittle's going to have down games like we just saw. Kittle
might
wasn't
suck.
a wide receiver. Kittle, or not wide receiver. Kittle wasn't on my tight end tier 1. I was right about that one too. I was like, no, I'm not putting him there. He's not in the Kelsey Andrews conversation because there's just too many options now with everybody being healthy.
I dropped Sutton to number 20 in the rankings. I think I was maybe a bit too bullish on old Cortland here. So 21, Brandon Ayuk, to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Howard Boyd at number 22.
I think he's got to be higher, though.
Who?
Ayuk, don't you, at this point? Ayuk's been top 15 for 4 or 5 weeks now? I'd play Ayuk over Rondell Moore in that same game. If I had the choice between the two, I would play Ayuk.
I don't know. I don't think if Colt McCoy is starting and Rondell's getting like 13 targets, I'll take Rondell.
But I would play Ayuk over Debo at this point.
Would you?
Yes, I would. I had him like last week. I would do Ayuk over Debo at this point. And at this point, Ayuk has been the consistent everybody is getting glossed over, but Ayuk has been the better wide receiver for multiple weeks now.
I'm going to stick with Debo in that upside for one more week. And you know what? I'll flip it next week if it doesn't come to fruition. That'll be my Thanksgiving resolution. Do you do Thanksgiving resolutions? Is that a thing?
No, I don't even do New Year's resolutions.
All right, neither do I. So Ayuk,
I can make a commitment to life any given day of the week or year. It doesn't need to be a special day.
Ayuk, Boyd, and then into Garrett Wilson, Jacoby Myers, Kadarius Toney, Alan Lazard, Jerry Jeudy, Curtis Samuel, Devonta Smith, and the guy who won everyone the monies last week, Christian Watson. After that, I have Cooks, DJ Moore, Duvernay, Darnell Mooney, Paris Campbell, Corey Davis, who I expect to be back, Darius Slayton, Drake London, Mac Hollins, and Nico Collins is where I am going at receiver. Like you said, it gets thin quickly. I want to talk about Toney for a minute. Hunky Toney. I don't have Juju or Hardman in the rankings, and it was pretty... I thought he blew out his hamstring on the touchdown when he hopped into the end zone. He was just going style points. It was like when Jefferson faked the hamstring injury. Really threw everyone off the scent that he was going to go for 200 yards in the game. But every time they went to Toney, it was like a legit big play.
It was, and I think with no Juju, he kind of fits the Juju role a little bit, despite not being similar in stature. But you've seen, even if Mecole Hardman's back, Mecole has actually been 60 to 70% of the time in the slot this entire year, and Juju hasn't been there as much as some were thinking, including myself. I thought it'd be a little bit more because that's kind of like he's the big slot role. It hasn't really been. It's been mostly Mecole Hardman with Juju playing a lot outside, and Toney now with the Chiefs, what had been to at least, I mean, it's a very small sample because it's a very limited game size, but he hasn't been spending a lot of much time in the slot, even with no Mecole Hardman in the last game. So I think if you're looking at this, Hardman, if he's back, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling kind of stay who they were, and the most upside is how you have them ranked is Kadarius Toney. I'm with you on this. I would go Toney, Hardman, and MVS this week if Hardman plays.
I thought this was interesting. Season wide receiver yards per route leaders. It's all the players that you would expect. Tyreek, Diggs, A.J. Brown. That was before last night's game. Justin Jefferson, Waddle, DeAndre Hopkins. Rashad Bateman is actually number 9 on that list, although I don't think that he's going to be back anytime soon. Darius Slayton, number 7 on that list.
He's been in my waiver column for weeks. Like,
no one wants Darius Slayton. I tried to sell Tambo on the DraftKings show last week on Darius Slayton over Wendell. I was like, if Slayton scores, it's going to be from like 50 yards. Like, this is what he does. And it's just like,
here. I'll give you this because I put the little huffy puffy emoji when I'm frustrated because I have very little to say at this point. Like if I have somebody in waivers for like 5 weeks in a row, like if you don't want them, you want, like you just said, nobody wants them. If you don't want them, you don't want them. I can't keep saying the same thing every single week. But I did have something new since week 5 because that's about when that thing happened with no Kenny Galladay. Like everybody's getting hurt. Sterling Shepard's out, and they're like down to just Wan'Dale Robinson and Slayton. Since week 5, Slayton's 31st. In team target percentage, 9th in team air yards percentage, 13th in yards per route run, and 27th in fantasy points per game. He's a top 30 wide receiver basically across the board, and nobody wants him.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks. Do you want him?
I do. I've picked him up. I've played him.
Well,
he's a wide receiver 3.
Listen, I'm going to have to play him this week because, I mean, okay, let's talk about, you're playing all these guys. It's a week. You're going to be out guys at receiver this week. If you have, we listed the players who are out.
I'll tell you how far I go. I would play him over DJ Moore. The DJ Moore numbers with Baker Mayfield versus PJ Walker are insane. I put him in that's something else. If you want to go check it out in the waiver column on there, it's the target percentage, the reception percentage, everything. He has more yards, points per game, touchdowns, everything in 3.5 games of Walker versus 5.5 games of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is going to ruin this team.
All right, so I'll move Slayton up to 31. How far down should I bump DJ Moore, do you think? Like down by Nico Collins?
I think by Drake London. I think they have similar. They could have a big day or absolutely nothing. I think that's who DJ Moore is with Baker Mayfield. It's either top 15 or 50th.
All right, I've dropped him down. So no Cooper Kupp. We need replacements. I have a team that has I have Kupp and Evans. So one's on bye. How long do we think Cooper Kupp's going to be out for? Season? 4 weeks? Like did they? I think it's going to be the season because they're going to get to the point where they're like, well, we're going nowhere. Why would we bring him back?
So what I was about to say, I think it's at least the fantasy season and then potentially the real NFL season because of what you just said is that he's tracking to maybe come back for the last 2-3 games at most, and then you would say, okay, maybe they get him ready, which at that point for fantasy managers, you still say, like, do you even hold on to him for the championship game? Well, he's Cooper Kupp. But what you said is what I think is most important is this, does he come back because the Rams are out of it? The Rams are not a playoff. I mean, because of their division, they're still technically kind of in it, but they're not. We know what the Rams are this year. Unfortunately, everything went sideways for them. Everything's fallen apart, including that what the offensive line has started with everything and Matthew Stafford's health. Stafford could get shut down. And then why do you bring back Cooper Kupp for 2 games if you're already out of it at that point? So I'm with you. I don't want to outright drop him, but if you're in a 10-team league with thin benches, I do it. No, please play with IR spots again. But if you don't have it, I think he's droppable.
So if Stafford is back, which he should be, I have Allen Robinson at number 43. I still don't feel good about him.
I don't feel good about him either. I think Van Jefferson's close just because he has that connection with Stafford last year. But
Skronik?
I mean, he's that Skronik. No, no. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring somebody in. I don't know who's sitting out there at this point. Maybe on somebody's practice squad somewhere, but it's not anybody that I think is going to make noise. I think we were officially looking at this team as just dead for fantasy purposes. Like even Kyron Williams, he got a lot of snaps in his first game of action, but not a lot of touches, and maybe eventually takes over. So what? RB3 because of how terrible that team is. Like Darrell Henderson just showed us what the best case scenario is in that game. And yeah, sure, it was a top 15, top 20 performance, but that's because it was a touchdown, and I don't think that's going to happen most weeks.
So if you need fill-ins for some of these guys, here's some names I'm going to throw. I think that Slayton, I mean, I guess if Christian Watson is available, you can go pick him up. But I think he's going to be very popular. Of like the random jabrones you can go pick up, Slayton's probably the best. Duvernay, if he's still out there. Paris Campbell with Matt Ryan back. Seems like he jumped ahead of Alec Pierce.
I would actually take him over Slayton.
You would take Paris Campbell over Slayton?
Yeah, his numbers with and without Matt Ryan are like Matt Ryan basically made Alec Pierce a non-factor now. So here's the numbers real quick. Campbell has 32 targets for 24 receptions, 203 yards, and 3 touchdowns in just 3 games with Matt Ryan. In the 2 with Ellinger, it was 7 for 4 receptions and 58 yards. Okay. Matt Ryan all of a sudden just loves Paris Campbell since that week. What was it? 6 game? So yeah, that's what we're looking at here. I would take Campbell over Slayton.
Corey Davis might be available if he was dropped because of the injury. I don't even know if he's going to be back, but if he is, it's not a great matchup. But Zach Wilson does love him some Corey Davis. Matt Collins, Nico Collins, maybe Jarvis Landry is available. Khalif Raymond. KJ Osborne, Nick Westbrook,
you
Ikena.
can go back up your rankings. DeAndre Carter and Donovan Peoples-Jones are still available in quite a few leagues, unless Keenan Allen comes back.
Is Donovan Peoples-Jones really that available? I had him as my number one pickup, but I thought he was sort of like, he was right on the fringe of, if you play in a super competitive league, he was gone 2 weeks ago, but maybe not.
You would think so and hope so. The percentages still don't show it. And you mentioned Duvernay. Duvernay on Yahoo technically checks at 59%, just under the 60% threshold, which you and I like to use.
Oh, I do the 50 now, by the way.
Oh, you dropped down to 50?
Yeah.
That's fair. I kind of looked across the sites, and CBS and ESPN are so off on the extremes that I just kind of break. Like, maybe we'd move it down to 50 for Yahoo, but I still feel like Yahoo's got the best. Sleeper would be the best one, but there's no list like there is on Yahoo. Like, you have to go to each player on Sleeper to check.
CBS is just, if you play like CBS fantasy football, I'm pretty sure you're 64 years old.
Friends with Jamie and Dave.
Yeah, and like Nando still plays on it. Like when I played a league with Nando, because he's an old he's an old CBS guy.
When I told Nando we were moving the flex leagues to Sleeper, he's like, just move them to CBS. I'm like, I'm not paying for this ancient site.
Yeah, like the reason people still play on CBS, because I think it was like the first mass fantasy football game. So like when they started playing in 1997 or whatever it was, they just never left. So that's who's on that site.
Oh, see, I played on Sandbox, if you remember that one from way back in the day.
Jake, you're like 20 years older than me. Don't worry about it. Tight ends for week number 11. I'm going to go Kelsey, Andrews, no shocker, Goddard, TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz, Pat Firemouth. How am I supposed to say? I keep screwing up this last name because I read it as Dulwich, but it's obviously not Dulwich. It's like Dultich or something.
Dulcich. It's a sick. Dulcich.
I don't like
It's kind of almost like Doncic. It's Doncic, but with a sick. So it's Dulcic.
So it's not
according to everybody who says that's how it's pronounced. Like, I was pronouncing it wrong out of college. So that, you know what I mean, when he came out of college. So I'm just going off what everybody else has been saying since he's been active.
So Greg Dulcic. It's to be Sitch then. I guess he doesn't have
it's Dulcic. Six. You got to get it's tough because you're doing this sound with a sh. So it makes it really tough to say. That's why.
Greg Jones comes in at number 7. George Kittle.
I choked on that.
George Kittle at 8. I'd have Foster Moreau higher, but Denver's tough. I have him at number 9. Cole Kmet. Kyle Pitts at 11. Hayden Hurst, Trey McBride, Jawan Johnson.
Yeah.
Dawson Knox, Harrison Bryant, assuming there's no Njoku against Buffalo. Taysom Hill, Hunter Henry, Higbee, Tyler Conklin. And I have Trey McKitty at number 21 with both Parham and Gerald Everett both likely to be out. I have some stats for you here. I tweeted these out. Sometimes I tweet out stats if you didn't know. Yards per route leaders, lost my pen, for tight ends so far this season. Goddard, Kelsey, Andrews, Freiermuth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Will Disley, Kyle Pitts, Daniel Schultz, Daniel Bellinger. Really surprised me.
Bellinger was Bellinger was turning into a tight end 1 before he got his eye destroyed.
Yeah, was that like an any given Sunday situation?
They got poked in the eye so hard, but I guess it must have been a fist in the eye because he broke his occipital lobe, or however you ever say that.
When I got the shit beat out of me in first year university, that's what happened to me. Boom, shattered orbital bone.
Really?
Oh yeah, tough scene for old Pat.
Wow, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, shit happens when you run your mouth. Did I learn? No.
No. The only one I would say, I don't want to put him back into the graces of being a tight end 1, but I'd be a little bit more bullish. Like, I'd play Higbee over Taysom Hill. I'd probably play Higbee even over Dawson Knox at this point, just because we saw in that game, once they lost Cooper Kupp because they're down.
That's a good call.
As you mentioned. Yeah, Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson, he went back to Higbee quite a bit.
Saints have been good against tight ends.
They have been. But they haven't played the Hell's Bells murderer's row of tight ends. I'm just crossing references all over the place.
Yeah, last week, routes per drop back leaders. And I think this is one of the most important things for tight ends, for who you see as a receiving tight end. This really surprised me. Moreau was number one. He's always number one when he plays because he doesn't block. He is a receiver. So that's why I like Foster Moreau going forward, especially. I don't know if Waller comes back this year or not. So he could actually be quite the pickup for you going forward. Dulcich is number 5 at 80%. Kittle, 90%. For a guy who's so good at blocking, like he doesn't block anymore.
No, we did a little bit this past week though.
Yeah, I mean, run blocking, he's fantastic. But pass blocking, like, they just don't ask him to do it. Same as Hawkinson. Like, Hawkinson's an awesome run blocker. He's at 82%. Like, he's just not blocking.
Well, yeah, I know what you're talking, but there was some, I don't remember who tweeted it out. It wasn't me, is that they said that Kittle in that game, it might have been, it was either Yankee, was it, from PFF? I don't know. So he was running routes, but blocking routes, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the pick ones or what, like you could, yeah.
That tracks. Okay, quarterbacks.
Real quick.
Yeah, Hurts, Allen, Fields, Lamar, Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Danny Jones at number 8. Dak and Cousins against each other is the top 10. And then for, like, if you need someone to fill in, Mariota, Garoppolo, Mr. Unlimited, Kenny Pickett, Heineke, Matt Ryan. Those are the top 16. I think you can figure something. One of those guys is going to be available for you, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I like Garoppolo. Garoppolo's been a nice fill-in for quite a few weeks. Oh, by the way, from the Denver Post, I found it, Pat. Dulcich. Sitch. Dulcich.
Dulcich. Like the situation. You call him the situation?
Yeah. There you go. Greg, the situation.
No, just no one ever calls it. Yeah, just the situation. It's like when like it'd be like People Magazine, here's Mike, the situation. No, it's a fucking just the situation, okay? We know who you're talking about.
All right. Okay.
Defenses to close this out very quickly. Once again, you can hit the description and find all of the lists. I got Philly, the Patriots, Ravens, Niners, Jets, top 5. Broncos, Cowboys, Bills, Steelers, Rams, top 10. Bengals, Saints, Raiders, Giants, Bears, Detroit as the top 16 this week. Is there anyone you want to make a case for that you really need to go out and play? You said you like the Rams. I have them at 10.
It's about where I'll probably have them. I like the. Where do you have the Bengals? I like the Bengals a little bit more than you do.
Bengals at 11.
I think I actually go with the Bengals even over liking the Rams. Their pass defense is opportunistic, and I mean we're talking about Kenny Pickett. This is the kind of quarterback we love to attack with defenses.
Yeah, but I mean I love to attack Andy Dalton with the Rams defense. I love to attack Joe Burrow down Jamar Chase, no offensive line, with TJ Watt back with the Steelers.
Sure.
Let's keep fighting about it. Actually, you got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to go.
All right, Jake Ciely, at AllInKid on the Twitter machine for as long as I guess that lasts for. And we have him at theathletic.com, so go check him out over there. You can follow me at thepme. Remember to smash the like button, or gently caress. Do whatever you want to the like button. Just hit it, all right? And then do the same thing to the sub button. Sub to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, rating and review, DraftKings Listeners League in the description, rankings in the description, newsletter in the description, hammer.bet. Go to it, thehammer.bet, sorry, if you want some more gambling info, and runthesims.com/Mayo to get yourself 10% off. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!